Dear friends, warm welcome on behalf of the European movement. My name is Petros and I will be your host for this edition of European Chats, a series of online discussions that brings together members of the European movement network from across Europe and across civil society to discuss the challenges we're all facing in this new world that the pandemic has ushered upon us, but also the opportunity that the future presents for all of us. And for today's session, we are bringing together two very important stakeholders within the network. We have ALDA, which is the European Network of Local Democracies, and we have, of course, AEGEE Europe, which brings together young students from across Europe. Antonella, Veronika, thank you very much for joining us, both of you. It's a real pleasure to have you here, not least because, as I said in my introduction, you represent very important constituencies and you're valuable members of the network. So it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Hello.
Thank you very much, Petros.
Perhaps, Veronika, I can start with you. The last year and a half has been very difficult for all of us in many ways, but particularly for young people, both those in education or early in their careers. We have seen that the effect of the pandemic and the lockdowns has been particularly hard on your members and the students around Europe. I was wondering if you can share with us your experience of how has the pandemic affected your organization, but also your members.
Indeed, as you have mentioned, the pandemic, of course, had vast effects on the majority of our members, and of course, all of them in many other aspects. It has hit them on many levels. We can count the economic level, since the economic state of many governments has declined, and that also meant that the already difficult task of finding a job has become even more Herculean. We have also seen the decline of democracies in many states and many governments, which has made the situation for them even tougher. And the youth has stood up for the values of democracies, for which they have also paid the price for their own bravery by different means, by arrests or even physical assault. Additionally, the increase of usage of technology and also the social isolation that was caused by the pandemic has contributed to the mental health of our volunteers and to their motivation of even taking part in various events. This has caused, of course, many issues also for the organization itself, as we had to change our ways of recruitment, change our ways of organization of events, change our thinking of volunteering and youth activism on the European, local, and regional levels. We are no longer relying on live events, no longer relying on face-to-face meetings. Currently, we have to rely on our digital tools and on the motivational aspects that we can provide. And AEGEE Europe also has to consider what can we do from Brussels, from the European level, to help our local institutions and our local establishments that we as AEGEE have. This has not been easy. It has been a process that we are currently still on, and it is a journey that will still continue and will also last until we are all fully recovered. However, we are committed, and we do believe that as an organization together, we can come through these times even stronger and will still be able to provide the additional values that AEGEE has and stand for our vision even past the pandemic.
One of the things that we have really missed is this connection that hasn't been possible because of the lockdowns and the social distancing that has been put in place. And I think organizations like your own are really significant in in helping young people feel connected, part of something, able to continue engaging and collaborating with others. Did you see an increase of that in the dealings of your members throughout Europe? You have a strong presence locally, and did that help at all?
I think that there is a wave in increasing and decreasing of the connections that people have currently. On the beginning of the pandemic, we have started very strong, as many organizations, because everyone has been motivated to make life work, even though it wasn't possible to do in a physical form. We all have switched to social media, we all have switched to Zoom meetings, and we have kept the connection going despite the difficulties that the pandemic has posed. However, as the time goes, as said, the effect on mental health is very high, especially considering all the aspects of either political or economic or just generally the situation that we are in. And that has also caused that the connections have decreased over time, have increased at times when, again, a crisis has happened. But in general, I do believe that the pandemic has brought us closer and has made us work together even harder and establish stronger bonds on personal level in order to make certain organizational aspects of the association work. So we have really come together to, find a new board, find the new structures internally, activate members, and just put way more effort into personal connection than we had before. It always has been in a sense of AEGEE to really connect all our members and to make them see the other side of Europe through friendships and through the exchange and through non-formal education. And this has now just increased as we can see that the borders have been closed and it is much more difficult for people to find a common ground. So I can say that it has been a struggle to keep up the connection. But so far, I can say that I'm very proud of our volunteers, of how they have developed their own structures and their own personal bonds in order to still make AEGEE function and to also still contribute to society in the way that we always wanted to.
Thank you very much for that. It's actually very significant indeed. And Antonella, if I can come to you perhaps, because also, your organization is very active at the local level, and perhaps I could take something that Veronika mentioned at the start, the effect all this has had on democracy. Perhaps let us know how ALDA has, first of all, in general, been affected by the pandemic and how your members are coping, but also how your activities have been impacted at the local level because of what has been going on.
Yes, with great pleasure. Thank you also, Petros, for keeping us making this European debate and keeping us together. Yes, ALDA, the European Association for Local Democracy, is working with a network of local authorities and civil society groups throughout Europe and beyond. We are promoting good local governance and citizens' participation at the local level. So as you can understand, the minus that we went through, the problem that we went through was that we are an organization which is connecting people, which is creating opportunities of co-decisions between citizens and local authorities, which is also creating a network at the European level throughout its members. And the fact that the people could not meet, that created like a titanic shock in our organization. In order to implement activities, I mean, this whole travel ban, especially at the international level, the people cannot meet, cannot exchange their practice, cannot build together networks and capacity building. That is also one of our main tasks. Created for a moment like a stop of our activities that then were also transformed in another way, like all of us. But it created also a plus that we will not forget, because since we are working locally in the local communities, those local communities have not stopped working. On the contrary, they have been part, both local government and civil society working together. They have been part of this group or these instruments which helped all of us to keep going through the peak of the pandemic. So local groups working together, deliver services, supporting local governments in liaison with their NGOs, finding solutions for those who were more affected, etc., etc. So, and now they are communities together finding solutions for upcoming problems, like, of course, the economic ones, the social ones, those who are living with more difficulties in our communities. This working together is there and kept on working together also during the pandemic and has an immense added value. So I would say that maybe ALDA and its members continued working as they were used to do, but less at the international level. So what has been essentially cut is the international traveling, which actually was completely transformed into online communication, and that's it. ALDA is not only working in Europe, we are working also beyond the European Union, and that has been difficult to manage because we could not follow as we would like to do in general our project outside the EU, like in the Balkans, in Eastern Europe, and in the Mediterranean areas. But what we are bringing with us is that communities, local communities, are even more important than before. The role of local governments in sorting out the difficulties with their own civil society and citizens are the pillar of the recovery. So we never stopped working, actually, and we hope that we will be useful also in the future. We also, as you, a group of the European movement, we also facilitated a lot of contacts among our members because there was a sense of isolation. So the fact that we could not meet and not to have regular face-to-face meetings for some of the communities which are remote or not in big cities, and ALDA has a lot of members which are in small places and remote areas. We kept a lot the contact with our members through exchanges, through videos, through individual calls. So somehow we took care of our members more than we are used to do. So I think that as all of us, it put us in the condition to really think how our organization is useful for our constituencies, really, a matter of death or life. And I think that this is something that we learned and that we are bringing us together with us in the near future.
Yeah, I think that's very important indeed. The need to reinvent in many ways what organizations at the European level are doing to assist all of our members on the ground. Because, like you said, obviously the lockdown forced a lot of people to go local, and it became obvious that perhaps the services that they needed the most were the ones that were provided to them locally, but also the connections that were necessary to get them through were the ones that were closest to them. But I want to echo a little bit what both of you said, the need to keep those networks alive despite the physical and social isolation that we were all experiencing. And I think in that sense, networks like yours, like ALDA, like AEGEE, like the European movements are crucial for that purpose. Perhaps if I can come back to you, Antonella, and probe a little bit more on the question of democracy. The effect that all this has had across Europe has been highlighted by many who have noticed, in some cases, backsliding in some democratic principles because of the lockdowns and other limitations that have been put in place. Did you notice that also through your network, especially in some of the countries where you're active in?
Yes, of course. I mean, this is de facto a big risk, because all the emergency situations are by definition an immense place for abusing when it comes to decision making and to cut short the democratic processes. Yeah, so it's the emergency by definition. This kind of top-down decisions, or you stay at home, we decide within the day, over the night. So there is a big risk, and very often emergency, we know when they start and we don't know exactly when they end, when it comes to this kind of non-democratic decision processes. On the other hand, the people are afraid and they are not reacting normally. So we have, as Europeans for the first time, faced an unimaginable situation where our rights have been limited by the present situation and the sanitary situation. So indeed, the already ongoing trends towards rigid regimes and non very democratic accommodation of some states have been even more strengthened in this situation. What I would say, though, is that I think that what we realized is very soon among our constituencies is that the people were at home, but they were not dead. So there has been and still there is a lot of energy of people that wants to contribute and want to know. So this incredible speed in digital transformation, also of local democracy, for instance, all these municipal council taking place online, have also brought some new opportunities. More people are attending and they want to know, and they have the opportunity to do so. So despite the fact that we are not in the municipal room or in the city council room, it doesn't mean that you cannot attend. So I think that there also, we saw also good things which are coming up. So people are using more the instruments and wants quality information also coming from decision-making processes and bodies at the local level. Of course, abuses are possible. For instance, we saw some municipal councils that were not doing the regular processes and that were cutting short, and obviously for more political reasons than for technological reasons. But what I would say is that when it comes to e-participation in general and e-democracy, these exercises through the pandemic probably accelerated something that was already in place. So we have accelerated with instruments, with technology, with also mental setting, which I think now we are more ready to be engaged in a political process also online more regularly. I will just say an anecdote, which to my view is really self-explanatory. You know, the local democracy is by definition a democracy of proximity. It means that the mayor and the municipal councillors and the whole structure is close. So it means that you meet them in the streets, you meet them in the corridors. This is a political process, which is a political process of proximity. So it's not like with the national parliament that goes via the parties, via the difficult and long chain processes. Well, even this small proximity, this short proximity, has been blown up by the pandemic, because even if you were living next door, you could not go down and meet the person in the market. So the fact that the political level at the local level was put online opened up the box. So it's not really the proximity, but it's more. So I organized an event with a mayor and several municipal councillors online with much more, much quicker than it used to be, because before you had to go there, and it was of course something in place in the municipality. Now you can do that much quicker, opening the box and opening the opportunities of meeting these people together, because it's now online, and it is much easier. So I'm not saying that everything is bad. Of course, there are plenty of difficulties, because the internet is full of difficulties when it comes to democracy and representation and manipulation. But not everything is bad, I think. We have to learn from this situation, Petros.
Indeed, indeed. And I think that's really important to consider, because we talk about the challenges, but the opportunities should also be highlighted. And Veronika, this is something that you mentioned also at the beginning. How has AEGEE, but also your members, harnessed the opportunities that technology tends to do more, perhaps? And my question to both of you, but I'll start with you, Veronika, is do you think that those changes are here to stay, or are we going to go back to the old ways, so to say, once hopefully the pandemic is under control and our normal life resumes? And I'm asking that, I'll give you an example. I was thinking about traveling for meetings, to what extent will we be able to say, I'm not going to fly for that meeting, I'm going to do it online, if you know that everybody else is planning to fly? So my question, do you want to be there or do you not going to be there? So my question is, all those innovations, all those opportunities, are we ready to embrace them for the long term, or do you think they're going to fizzle away?
Thank you, Petros, for the question. And indeed, I have to agree, there is a lot to learn from the pandemic, and there is a lot that we have already learned, and many efficient ways in which we have harnessed the technology that came up with that. So I do think that many of the aspects that right now we have developed during the pandemic will stay in long term. Can be online events that are indeed much faster to be organized. They do not require international travel. They do not require high budgets. Those things will most likely continue. However, I do not think that they can completely replace the human contact and live meetings that we had before, or the aspect of traveling. However, especially now, I think we had this moment of taking a look at how we are doing things, how our processes are working, taking a look at sustainable options of traveling, maybe taking a bit more time, maybe not flying, as you said, but maybe taking the train or taking the bus, or just trying to keep up the momentum of the pandemic when even the environment has recovered a bit. And we have the time to now see how can we continue with the good habits that we have learned in the pandemic and the good effects that the pandemic had, and mitigate the ones that were more negative for us. So to answer your questions, I do believe that many of the things will stay. I do think that we will still continue with the technology and to continue with online meetings, maybe online general assemblies, which can also have a more inclusive factor in a way, because of course, not everyone can afford to travel, or not everyone might be allowed to travel in the future as well. The pandemic is still far from being over. So we still have to account for the option that in the upcoming months or years, there will still be a possibility of a group of our members not being able to travel. And as Antonella said, there is also a group of our members who does not live within the EU, as we also have membership in 37 countries. And that group cannot be excluded from our democratic processes or from our event. So this trend of inclusion, this trend of quicker, more efficient, and more effective processes should continue also after the pandemic.
That's indeed great. And I think it's important for us to also show leadership and make sure that our networks keep all the positives, everything that we've learned from this process. But if I can return the question to you too, Antonella, do you think that the innovations you mentioned in the way that people engage with local government, the way that local democracy works, will stay there? Is the genie out of the bottle now? Will citizens demand that they are able to take part in council meetings digitally, or meet with their local councillors or even the mayor through Zoom calls, so they don't have to go and queue outside of an office for hours?
Well, I think that it's going to be a combination of both. I think it's going to be a combination of both. I think that when it comes to presence, we are going to select. We are going to select much more. We are going to select when it's important to be in presence. It's not only I'm there, I'm not there. It's how I am there. Because before it was not an option. Because also we had the possibility to attend events online, but it was much more, you are on a server and you cannot participate, or it was like a radio, listening to the radio and not much more. Now it's not only I'm there or no, I'm not there, it's how I am going to be there. So of course, I think that for strategic meetings, we all prefer being face-to-face, when we have to negotiate, when we have to make the point, when we have to understand with things between the lines, and you really to negotiate. There is also issue of complexity. I think that things which are complex or emotional, or when that needs to be done in person. When it is more technical, when it is more getting information and exchanging basically information, we can do that online. What I'm thinking though, Petros, which I think there was for networks as we are, I think that one thing came to my mind during the lockdown, or as we are today. We have been living on the what we have built in the past, because as networks we have been traveling extensively. We met all the people, we know all the people, and of course we were able to interact with decision makers, with other people, because we knew each other before. But for those who were starting networking, or that wanted to engage at the European level, because also we have to say that has been not only the year of the pandemic, but that has been an immense European year, with the end of the 7 years, with the beginning of the new year, 7 years, with the MFF, with the new commission, with the new planning, the new priorities, with the kickoff or not kickoff of the Conference for the Future of Europe. For those all European network as we were, we have been building relationship from the past and empowering them in a way or in another, also online. But for those who wanted to engage from the start, that was hard, because online doesn't give you the same level. So we were asked by young networks, by young civil society, how do you engage with European policies now with this instrument? It's much, much harder. So I think that the combination of the future is, fortunately, as Veronika said, fortunately a combination of all these things, for the sake of our lives, for the sake and our families, and for the sake of the environment, and also for a more modest management of time. So I think that it will be a combination of both. And fortunately, I mean, there are also new instruments which make things more easier. So technologically speaking, hardware, software, people are now ready for that. So I think digitalization is going to accompany us, not as substituting relationship, because I heard, for instance, yesterday that I think that it was one of these banks in New York, one of these big names, and now I can't remember. I don't want to make their publicity as well. But they asked all the people to go back to the office, because they realized that other banks met in person clients, and they had better deal. They actually closed the deal. So yes, contact when you have to negotiate is irreplaçable. You know, it's irreplaçable. So when you have to negotiate, when you have to make the point, you have to do that. But for many other things, we don't need to be present. So we need to take it with us, and especially in this immense European year, we saw how it's important to be able to participate.
Indeed. No, that is indeed very true. And I think all three of us in our respective roles need to be in front of our stakeholders, not just for advocacy, but also for fundraising and network building. It has made our job much harder. Also, engaging with our colleagues, with our boards. It is indeed, certain things you cannot replace from a screen, but the digital aspect gives us opportunities. Both of you have touched a little bit on the future, and it's good to see how forward-looking you are as leaders in your respective organizations. And we are now, perhaps, fortunately, engaging in a discussion about the future of Europe. The Conference on the Future of Europe was finally launched on the 9th of May. And The European institutions, but also member states and civil society are slowly but surely becoming active in this conversation. Veronika, if I can start with you, how do you view both the conference itself, but also the discussion about the future of Europe as it emerges from the pandemic, or as it gets used to living with the pandemic? Because as you correctly pointed out, this is not going to go away anytime soon. So how do you view the conference and the debate around the future of Europe, and what is the role that AEGEE can play in that?
Thank you for that question, Petros. I do think that the conversation on the future of Europe and the structuring of the European Union has been long overdue. And we have seen during the pandemic that the European Union needs to be more dynamic and fitting for its citizens. Of course, there are many aspects to why it hasn't worked and what should change. And it is our role as civil society to bring this conversation to the citizens and to our membership. The institutions have finally launched it. That is very true, but I'm not sure how about your home countries, but in mine, it is not very well known and the awareness is very low. No one is aware that there is a platform or that there are multiple or that they can contribute with their own ideas. And here comes the role of AEGEE, of EMI, of ALDA, of all of us as the not only message holders, but also facilitators of this change, of encouragement, of empowerment of our citizens to actually hold these conversations. Doesn't matter if they are Eurosceptics or not, the European citizen is here, the European Union is here for everyone and all its citizens and should fulfill their needs. And therefore all of them should participate in its forming. Additionally to this, I also do believe that the accession countries should be included in the process, because if we talk about the future of Europe, we also have to include the future citizens. And there, AEGEE, of course, will include all of our membership, regardless if they are based in EU or not. And we do believe that is the right way to do. We are currently organizing a project with CHEF, the Young European Federalists, which is called Next Chapter Europe, which main aim is to bring the conference on the future of Europe to the local level, to our members, to the youth, and let them hold their own consultations and come up with suggestions and ideas, and let them brainstorm on how they want the European Union, their European Union, and their future to look like. These ideas will then be, of course, brought forward to the decision makers. And how do I view the conference? Well, we already have seen the methods. We know how this will work in practice. But what I would like to see on the end is that the conference brings tangible results and that the citizens are being listened to and that the treaty changes are not excluded. If we need something as citizens and we demand it, we should also receive it from the stakeholders and from the politicians. And from the civil society and from AEGEE, of course, I do expect that if this will not happen, we will be the first ones to raise our voice and to speak for every citizen of the European Union and everyone around Europe. So I do believe we have an important role to play here, and I do hope that everything will go as we would like to see it. But if not, I also believe we are ready to act upon the results that will come out.
Antonella, just like AEGEE and the EMI, of course, ALDA has been actively engaged in the conference, both in the build-up and now that it's launched. So how do you view the conference as an instrument to bring together citizens? And also, what are your hopes and aspirations for the future of Europe and engaging the European Union with the people that is supposed to serve, Europeans?
There are things that I can say and things that I cannot say, okay? Let's start for things that I can say then. I think that, first of all, this is a precious moment because I think Europe as a project, through this cataclysm we went through, is getting out from this situation better than expected. So if we think about ourselves a year and a half ago, I think we are better off now when it comes to explain the added value of the European Union as a collective project. And we have been forced to think together, to discuss together, even if we were creating barriers during the lockdown, but we did it together. And now there is this big message of the vaccination, and we realize that it's so sad and there is no plan for staying alone. So this idea of the European project as a need, this is a good moment at the end of the day for this exercise called the Conference for the Future of Europe. The way they have organized it, we are going to stick to this, Petros. So with our members, we are going to animate and inform them about the platform. We are going to have sessions of information because, as Veronika said, we need to inform the citizens that they can do that. We are going to have also a plan for informing our members how to share the values that ALDA is also promoting in the plan, and to have like a sort of shared message. And we are going to animate a lot of events within our network, because that's I think that this is another very good excuse for proposing something, for debating about the future of Europe. And as I said, it's timely. It's timely because, of course, this pandemic has created a cataclysm in Europe and in the world. So, the whole game has changed, and we need to see how we place as Europeans in this game. There are going to be even more problems in the future: jobs, social inequalities, situation for young people. As Veronika said, we need to give answers collectively to these issues. And we are going, as ALDA, contribute to that. We are also animating a group of civil society called the Civil Society Conventions for the the Conference of the Future of Europe, as many others are dynamizing this exercise. About the results per se of the conference, I don't know. I don't want to be too pessimistic, actually. I hope there would be good ideas, because I'm doing citizens' participation by default. And I'm looking at very often very good ideas, unexpected networks, unexpected solutions, are coming from discussions and from dialogue. So if we open the dialogue, maybe we will have this solution. On the other hand, Petros, there are always the elephants in the room, and those are the member states. So those are those who are the most conservatives, yes? So there are things that we can do and things that we cannot propose, because the states won't agree. So there is also these elements, how visionary we can be. But in this moment, the Conference for the Future of Europe opened the door and let everyone to be visionary enough. And I think that we all need to do our job, disseminate the information for the platform, for the debate, ask to comment for good and for bad the role of the future of Europe. I don't think it's a bad moment to propose this exercise. I actually think it's a very good one, and we need to even more use it to underline how it is important to think together, and how it is important to maintain firm the values which bring us together. So I would say rather optimistic, let's say so, yes.
Indeed, I think after the year we had, it's good to be optimistic. And like you said, the scale and the ambition of this undertaking is significant, and perhaps it is our job as committed Europeans to really help it succeed, because we haven't seen a consultation, for a lack of a better term, of this side sized before, and also certain innovations like the citizens panels, for example, which are very interesting additions at the European level that we haven't experienced before. We've seen them at the national level, but not at the European level. So there are things there that perhaps can become part of the normal process of engaging with citizens beyond European elections and other electoral contests. You have both been very gracious with your time and excellent with your responses. I personally look forward to working with both of you, but also as the European movement, we look forward to working with your organizations, both in the context of the conference, but also everything else that we have ahead of us. There is a lot we can do, and we can succeed if we work together. So thank you once more for joining us today, giving us your time and your thoughts, and we look forward to having you with us again soon.
Yes, thank you very much for this good opportunity of talking about this with Veronika and with you, Petros. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both Petros and Antonella, for the time. It was a pleasure, and looking forward to working with you as well.
Wonderful. And to all of those of you across Europe who have been watching today, a big thanks indeed. Please stay in touch. The European movement, ALDA, AEGEE are present somewhere near you. You can find more details on our website, europeanmovement.eu, about all our members, especially the ones that you just heard from. And we look forward to our next event. In the meantime, have a good afternoon and enjoy the rest of the week. Goodbye.